Saudi Arabia, revered for its oil wealth, not only in the Middle East but also in the world over. Iran, also an oil giant, had been more silent in the international oil playing field, no thanks to Western sanctions on the patient country. So, when Iran's sanctions were lifted last year, most oil industry analysts got cold feet for what Iran's entrance into an already oversupplied market would do to an oil price already on a free fall. Whilst Iran didn't come in with a flood, most oil revenue-dependent countries had their nerves calmed, but not anymore. This is largely due to the ongoing feud between the two Middle Eastern powerhouses.
We are oil and gas dependent. But the Iran, that's coming out from the cold, they could afford to sell their oil below $10 because they have been producing even while the sanction was on.
As long as there are no cutbacks, in production, both by OPEC and by non-OPEC producing countries, I think that the rhetoric between between Iran and Saudi Arabia will not, and their allies, will not drastically affect the price of crude oil in the international market.
In the interim, it can affect the oil price in the international market, because on the first day of that diplomatic row, it increased the oil price marginally, but you know that cannot be sustained, except it goes into a full-blown war like it did during the Gulf War in the early 90s.
On the flip side, should Nigeria be more concerned over Iran and Saudi when America, who used to be a customer, is now a competitor?
What you find is that the volume of export that U.S. tends to do is fairly minimal still, because a lot of the local internal consumption. And strategically, they're actually still reaching out to buy a couple of Saudi barrels. And in fact, they're opening up to buy a couple of Nigerian barrels. So the strategic reserve is key for them.
Whichever way the situation plays out, Nigeria will be affected, especially because it has almost ₦1 trillion of its 2016 budget pegged on oil revenues, coming in at $38 a barrel. This may just be a further tricky situation for an economy already struggling.
By the end of this year, yes, would have accrued more borrowings, but however, would have been able to create the kind of infrastructure that will diversify the economy.
I mean, when you do long-term infrastructure development like road, like power, like this things take time. And then if you have borrowed heavily to finance these projects, then it's not free. So you have to be paying back this loan with interest. And the question will be, when are you going to be able to pay back?
Inasmuch as most analysts think there is no in-between, there is either a Cold War, which will likely affect price of oil negatively, or a full-fledged war with a likely positive impact on price, one cannot stop but ask what the role of oil being an off-take commodity will play in all of this analysis. Wondering what an off-take agreement is? Well, like it is with every rich resource commodities traded on the international markets, there must be an agreement between producers and buyers, also known as an offtake agreement, to secure procurement of the producer's commodity, in this case, oil. What this means is that the oil being bought during this feud had been ordered for months before. The oil ordered for now will be delivered months later. If we are being optimistic here, just maybe, the two feuding parties would have sheathed their swords before any off-takers agreement is signed. Hence, an opening to avert a further dip in prices of oil. Am I being too optimistic here? I dare say it doesn't hurt to be, especially if you're a citizen of Nigeria, a country heavily dependent on oil revenues. Hauwa, AIT News, Abuja.